why don't you introduce yourself? Just tell us about yourself and your journey into the world of Halo montages, Lemon Sherpa.
Yeah, absolutely. So my tag is Lemon Sherpa. I've been editing videos in the Halo Montage community for like 14 or 15 years. It's been a long time. But yeah, really just started it as a kind of a casual thing among some friends and have slowly sort of like grown my skills in the space, grown the number of projects that I've worked on, and had the opportunity to work with some truly awesome people in the community on some of these videos. And yeah, really always just been interested in Halo, the community, the games itself, any media surrounding it. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to work on so many of these projects.
That's awesome. I seen the video you sent me. I give it a watch. The first montage you made.
Oh yeah.
You've come a look like you. It's always amazing to see where everybody starts off at.
For sure.
You've come such a long way.
Yeah,
Uh,
I appreciate that. Yeah, that was Windows Movie Maker and the old I think it was with Bungie Pro, you could download videos from your file share in like 360p onto a computer. So we had to, we had to record everything like in file share and clips and stuff and then transfer them over that way, but it
oh
was still a
wow.
blast to make. Sitting on my like family computer with a couple of buddies.
So how did you get into the art form, and what like inspired you to get started making these videos?
So I think the first like Halo video that I ever saw was a buddy of mine back in the 8th grade. Um, Shout out X Ellipsis. Showed me the Straight Rippin montage that Zola made
Okay.
back in the day. And he was like, yo, this is so sick. And he was showing me some of his clips and things like that. And I've always been kind of fascinated with like Halo's aesthetics, the armor, this like cool futuristic sci-fi environment, but I had never seen it presented like that, sort of in the way that Zola had in that video. So that was like a truly I guess formative experience right there. And then like I started watching more videos. I wasn't even aware that Halo montages were a thing before that, but that just like opened up the floodgates for watching all these amazing creators who were, putting their work out there. I know that you were also like a super successful editor, working on the
Yeah.
time. Yeah, I remember my buddy also showing me, I think it was Invincible, one of the
Yeah.
videos that you edited back in the day.
Yeah.
Like we thought that that was like the coolest thing ever, man.
And that has
And
aged so badly now.
dude, I still watch it. I still think it bangs. It
Oh,
just
that's cool, man.
yeah. Oh yeah, of course. So it was really just like the process of getting exposed to those sorts of things. And, like I was never really good at playing the games back in the day. I was always the bad kid in the group. So I had to figure out something that I could do with regard to Halo because I wanted to immerse myself in it so badly. So I kind of, I don't know, settled on montage editing. For some reason, I saw all of y'all's amazing work and I was like, hey, I could do that. So I gave it a shot. Obviously didn't succeed, but I like to think that every video has been better than the last.
Oh yeah, you've grown a lot, especially in the last the last 4 or 5 years. Like your work is like it's just phenomenal. Like it's just taken on a whole new level from what I've seen.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I think I really started taking it a little bit more seriously at a certain point. Really spending the time on things, and maybe it was just my expectations and like my standards getting a little bit higher rather than, just cranking out a video in 2 days. I was really taking the time to make sure that everything was kind of up to expectation, as best as I could.
Yeah,
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I like to think that the past few videos have been some of the best.
it's so true. Like patience is such a virtue in this art form. Like I'm friends with this pro editor. He made a career out of this, and he's a 3D editor, and he tells me about how much work goes into the post process and all that stuff. And it shows that you put a tremendous amount of work into your creations. Um
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I won't lie. There's some things that I spent more time on than I should have, like 30 hours of rotoscoping for the things that people probably didn't even notice. But hey, I mean, it's all a process, and that stuff's always super fun for me either way.
Your transitions are amazing too, man. And not just the rotoscoping, but the transitions you have are they're so fluid.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's one of the things that I've tried to really focus on in the past couple of years is like virtually every transition, making that something that's like really smooth for the eye to see or something that's really interesting
Yeah.
without kind of taking away from either of the clips.
Now, how do you go about doing that? Like, what's your process for something like that? If you don't mind me asking, you don't have to divulge your secrets, but
Oh,
I'm
no,
curious.
no problem. I mean, I like to think that there's a couple of kind of like cookie cutter transitions that I've experimented with a whole lot and like seen other editors use previously. You know, like a match cut with Spartans where it's sort of the same shot of Spartans, but the background's changing pretty fluidly in the background. And like, just like trying to put a different spin on that, whether that's like some displacement coming over it, whether that's like a cool glitch effect that happens in the background. And then for other ones, I just try to look at like what's on the map, what like forms and shapes are on there, and how you can kind of incorporate different map elements as well as like what was happening in the clip previously.
Ah, okay.
It's kind of like you never know what you're gonna get. Every transition I feel like is like I have to relearn it all over again almost because some of them are so different. Some
Right.
clips
Yeah.
are so unlike the one that's following after them, and you have to get real creative. But yeah, I like to put a lot of thought into that before I actually go in and start recording angles.
The next question is, how has your style evolved over time?
So
I know
I've
we
been
kind of touched on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the biggest things for me was just putting a lot more, like we said, into that into those transitions, but also really nailing down the sync before I start working on things. Making sure that without any cinematics, without any transitions, no effects, that the video flows perfectly on its own.
Right.
Because I feel like without a solid foundation there, you can't really cover up a sloppy flow with, cool effects or whatnot. It helps, but at the end of the day, I really want the video to feel like it could stand alone just at that sync stage in Premiere. That was a big thing for me. And then also just expanding my color palette. I know a lot of the tools that I use now have kind of helped me work in some cooler effects and, shades, depth within scenes and things like that. But I think that's definitely been big for me. And then, yeah, like we said, just that focus on transitions, I think has been huge in a lot of my videos and probably something that I focus on a little too much.
I still remember the first time I saw Symbol of Fear. I had to shit myself. I was like, dude, this is amazing. Like the colors, I still remember like the shot going up, like showing the Spartan and then revealing the moon and then the text coming in. It looked perfect.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, that was a video that like Slade and I can't even take all the credit for like all the ideas in that video. Slade was such a crucial part of like bringing all of that stuff together and like the motifs that he wanted to come across, the color palette and all of those things. But yeah, no, that was a real fun video to work on.
So what keeps you passionate and motivated about creating frag movies in such a niche scene like this?
I think honestly, at the end of the day, like you said, it's a small scene, and I like to think that I really just do it for the love of the game. But honestly, at the same time, it's really just kind of like engaging with people in the community, seeing their perspectives on videos, seeing other people's work also really motivates me because I love to see like the bar has just been consistently raised in the Halo community, like year over year.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really exciting. So beyond just like the love of the game, I think that it's a really interesting way to like evolve creatively, try some new stuff out and kind of experiment.
We're moving on to the next section. This is just creative process. How do you approach conceptualizing a new montage, like the idea, and how do you go about crafting the kind of just having that inspiration to with the new idea of a new montage?
Yeah, so it's kind of on two separate tracks for me in a sense, because I feel like it works a little bit different if I'm editing for someone versus if I'm just, deciding to make a video for myself or, just, like, using clips that I have access to in the meantime. I will say if it's 100% up to me and, it's just a spur of the moment, almost like inspiration, it really comes from, like, the soundtrack primarily for me. A lot of music that I listen to on a daily basis, like, I really like, music with a lot of imagery that you can kind of visualize scenes to, and, like, every now and then, pretty often, to be honest, I come across, um, music and, a sense of imagery that they evoke that I just think, like, "Wow, that would look amazing in a video," and I don't really have the means to do things in live action to the same extent, so Halo for me is largely that, like, creative outlet at the moment.
Right. Um,
And then when it comes to, like, somebody else, for example, it really just comes down to, like, I pretty much always let other people pick their soundtrack. If it's a soundtrack that I don't think will work at all, I'm pretty brutally honest with them, but for the most part, I want it to be music that the player also likes a ton, so I really just go off of, the clips that they're providing me, um, the kind of, like, energy or intensity I get from the clips or their gameplay, plus the soundtrack that they provide me is usually a pretty solid basis to start kind of, like, conceptualizing what the vibe of the video is gonna be like.
Gotcha. That's really challenging because I know a lot of editors, they will only edit to music that they choose, that they like. It's interesting that you're flexible enough to work
Mm.
with the soundtrack that a player desires.
Yeah, 100%.
That's really
Like,
cool.
I don't fault anyone for using their own music exclusively. Like, it's a pretty deeply personal process when you're working through that stuff. But I consider it a nice challenge, especially because, like, I've done some freelance editing work before. Your client's never gonna let you pick the soundtrack, for example. Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty much having to work with what's in front of you. So I consider it an interesting creative challenge. And then on top of that, I never wanna make a video for somebody else that they go, "Wow, this video is great, but I hate the song," right?
Yeah, that's true. Um, do you get like visions and stuff when you're like listening to a song? Let's say like it's a song that like really motivates you to like edit or whatever. Do you get visions? Do you hear sounds? Anything like that?
Yeah, totally. Totally. I think that, like, listening to music for me and for a lot of editors, I think as well, is a very, like, cinematic experience as well, where,
Right.
like, you're thinking of things in your head, you're visualizing stuff that works with the music. Um, but yeah, 100%. I think that sort of like inner screen lights up in those moments where you're listening to a track that you really enjoy.
It's crazy. It just shows like how passionate like we are about this thing. Like we're listening to music and we don't visualize like, things about the music or whatever. We visualize like kills on a Spartan or like sync points or like how would I use this? How would I, what angle would I use here? It's really
Totally.
cool.
Yeah, 100%.
What's your favorite part about the process of the creation process of a frag movie?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, for me, I think there's a couple of really interesting points, but I think it's like just the level up points across the stage. So when you're going from a rough sync and you get it really solid and everything's flowing well, that first moment where you like can take a look at all of your cinematics incorporated into that, it's like, yo, like that worked so well. That little like rush of dopamine that you get, that satisfaction off of like seeing the piece just get elevated that much more.
Yeah.
And then to the same extent, once you start laying down, your masks, your rotos, any 3D work and other effects, seeing how that once again gets transformed, just like that feeling of satisfaction is next level.
That's so true. Yeah. That's a great answer to that question. Um, the next question is, can you walk us through like your workflow, and how long does it typically take you to finish creating a montage?
Yeah, totally. I will say it takes me way too long to finish a montage in most cases.
It's not a bad
Uh,
thing. That's a good thing.
yeah, we're talking like 3 to like 8 months. typically
Wow.
on the timeline. Yeah. In terms of that stuff, I don't really like to work on anything for less than that because I always feel like there's more that I could do, or like even if I feel like it's good, I'll just sit with it for a little while because
And
sometimes you come
meditate
back.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you come back 2 weeks later and you realize like, no, I actually really don't like the way that this flows or something like that. So I always like to give myself as much time as possible. So that timeline can be pretty tricky, but in general, I always start off in Premiere, going in, and I think one of the things that I've seen myself and a couple of other editors do, but I don't see a ton of people do, is going in with rough clips and just placing the gun audio against the track. So marking out all of the beats that I want to use for shots, and then just listening to how that sounds
Oh.
against the track. Because if
Yeah.
the audio if the audio flow is off, I feel like it's not gonna be a good sync for the video anyway. So I try to add those gun sounds in pretty much immediately, like, while I'm syncing the clips, and that gives me a really strong idea, A, of, like, where I'm syncing it. Because your eyes can be really deceiving, I've found. When you place a clip over something, maybe it looks like it's in sync, and then you come back later and it's like, oh, maybe that's a couple frames off. But
Right.
your ears, like when something's a frame off of a beat, like you hear that immediately. So I try to work with the audio on the sync. Um, and then from there, it's really just taking the comp into After Effects once I'm happy with the rough sync, doing finer, like motion editing on it, adjusting the velocity, all of the clip in and outs, and then eventually adding in those cinematics. Once I get really pleased with how those cinematics are looking against the overall sync, I'll start going in and, laying down some transitions or some masks or some rotos. Um, but really, the one big thing that's changed for me a lot recently is like just the clip capturing process in terms of all of the tools that we have now. So previously, when I went in, it would just be the process of recording the clip. You record the angle, good, on to the next one. Lately, it's been recording like multiple passes of everything that I might need. So going into ReShade and like just recording the depth map of an angle, just recording the normal map, just recording
Oh
like a
wow.
chroma keyed version of the foreground, just so I have everything, and like even a blur map if I think that I need it. So it's like a really intensive clip capturing process before anything even goes into the software. But then once I'm there, I feel like I have so much more to play around with.
All that stuff you mentioned is like pretty advanced stuff. I myself am still learning how to kind of work with like depth maps and stuff like that. And that's incredible. You're doing that. I mean, that's like that's really high level stuff you're doing there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's once you get into the flow of it, um it's not that difficult. It's just really tedious having to go in and record like 5 different versions of stuff. But no, it's pretty remarkable what you can do with like normal mapping and some plugins. Like I know Normality is a big one in After Effects where you can use that normal map that you record to direct like 3D lighting within the scene instead of just using an overlay like a screen.
Yeah.
Stuff like that's been huge for me, but it makes the capping process super tedious.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Um, the next question is, are there any specific challenges you face when working on Halo montages? And also, we can kind of mix two questions in together. What softwares do you use? I know you mentioned Premiere Pro and After Effects. Any other ones?
Yeah, I mean it's mostly just Premiere and After Effects. I'm trying to work in a little bit of Blender
Yeah.
as I go along just for simple things at the moment, but I mean Blender is a whole other can of worms that like I am not even prepared to delve into at this point. I feel like that software is just something different. But it's mainly those 2 right now, and then, as I mentioned also, we have, like, the Dolly Cam tool for Halo 3 at the moment, which is, like, super helpful, and then, ReShade for all of those different passes are kind of, like, the main ones that I use. And in terms of the biggest challenges, that's definitely that's a really good question. I would say it's, at the moment, trying to get, like, interesting perspectives into a video. I get hung up on trying to do something that's kind of, like, different, on a lot of the angles that I capture, rather than just putting in, placeholders that maybe show the clip as it's happening, but aren't visually appealing or interesting to look at. That's definitely always going to be a challenge because, as I said, like the community raises the bar so often, it's hard to find things that haven't been done before.
Yeah, very true. I was gonna ask, for that, I think you said the ReShade maps.
Yeah.
Do they have that for Halo 2? Do they have that
Uh,
for Halo 2?
they should, yeah. You should be able to install ReShade just on MCC in like as a whole, just in general.
Okay.
I've never tried it in Halo 2, but that's definitely it's a good question. That's something I should try.
I'd want to see, like, that's how you get like that like black and white or like different color maps, the shading, right?
Yes, yeah,
Okay. Okay, yeah, you can do some really cool stuff with that. I seen Zent's doing like some work with that, which was really cool. I think it was in Delta he did it. In the Delta montage. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I have, yeah. No, it opens up so many doors. There's things that you no longer have to mask that you normally would have. If you throw your depth map on like the camera lens blur effect in After Effects, you get a really, really realistic looking like blur map that extends throughout the scene, as opposed to just throwing like, Gaussian blur on the background. So no, it's like that's really kind of revolutionized the process for me.
Man, that's such deep topics. That's really interesting. Then, what's it called? This is the next section we're moving on to. What's your perspective on the current state of the Halo montage scene?
The current state of the Halo montage scene, I mean, it's definitely kind of like feast or famine out here these days, I will say. Not a whole lot of views to go around, not a lot of interest from the larger community in general. I think for the most part, a lot of Halo's fans are almost kind of like burnt out on watching Halo montages, which is kind of a shame in a sense. But I do see it also as being like the community that does gravitate towards these videos and make them consistently. It gets smaller, but it becomes a lot more engaged within that space, right? You start to see the same names popping up in a lot of videos. You see the same people in these comment sections and things. So it's almost like it's like a friend circle that gets smaller and smaller, but the connections are a little bit deeper there at the same time.
Right.
So I'd say, yeah, it's kind of a mix. It's sort of bittersweet in that sense.
Who are some of your favorite montage content creators and why?
So I think, as I previously mentioned, like the Straight Rippin montage that Zola made, like really got me into the game. Zola, I think, is always going to be one of the greats. And then also Noob Slayer and Puba, I think, have constantly been pushing the envelope within the space. Like their work is always astounding, and I'm always so impressed to see what they come up with. In a similar vein, like Zhestal, he's done a lot of work as well within the community, getting like really detailed like down patch instructions so people can go back and look at their previous films and like record angles from the actual theater files from like old builds of MCC on the computer. And my favorite editor of all time, probably Xander, to be honest. Xander is the GOAT in my opinion. His edits are just so clean. Like I feel like he never misses.
Yeah, I seen one by him. I think it was with Kedaddle. It might have been.
Oh yeah.
Manifest, I think it was called. He's got like his angles in there, and then like, well, the angles that he's got, like, I don't even know how he gets his angles to look like that. They look so real. It looks like 3D, but it also does it. Like yeah,
He's
it's,
unbelievable. Yeah, and then beyond that, right? Like I think Xander's always been one of my favorites. And then there's other people in the scene. Like I've always thought that you were a particularly like you're an all-time GOAT when it comes to the montage scene. No questions asked. And then also people like, like Reflections, I feel always does really cool stuff with his videos. He always puts a really interesting twist on like what you would commonly expect to see. I know he mainly does Infinite right now, which isn't super explored, which I love at the same time because he's kind of like trailblazing over there in a sense.
the colors he uses are so cool.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, they're mind-blowing.
Um, this is gonna open up the door to a big conversation here. Do you think there's potential for frag movies to gain mainstream recognition as an art form? What are your honest thoughts about the art form itself and it kind of getting more mainstream appeal?
Yeah, totally. In terms of if I think there's potential for these to gain mainstream recognition, absolutely. I think one of the current challenges in the space is, if you show a frag movie to somebody who's not familiar with the game that it's from,
Yeah,
a lot of that can kind of be lost on them, which I see as like an interesting hurdle, but it's not something that is like inherently limiting to the art form. And I think, yeah, like having previously come from like a traditional art background as well, like it's astonishing the amount of things that have artistic value in our society today. And to exclude something, like a frag movie just on the basis of, it's from a video game, for example,
right.
I think is kind of short-sighted at the same time. I think that there's a lot of artistic things that speak to people. There's certain cinematics that I've seen in videos that have like affected me way more than some of the greatest paintings that are hanging in art galleries today. So
Yeah.
I think the answer is always going to be really subjective, but yeah, absolutely. I think with those hurdles in mind, there's absolutely potential for those to gain sort of like mainstream recognition as a legitimate form of art.
I think people they like when you go see a an art piece and it's like a painting or something like that. Most people don't paint, so they don't know like, how many, how many times they had to go and layer that and all that stuff. So like, what it's the same thing with montages. So I do agree that people can definitely appreciate it, even if they're not familiar with the game and they don't really understand what's going on. I think they can look at it and be like, whoa, hold on. Like if they look at like a video like yours, for example, like Symbol of Fear or Alice by Puba, where he kind of takes the game and makes it something else, right? Um, like I think people can definitely look at that and go, yeah, there's something more to this than what I'm seeing. It's not just a video game.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, I think those videos that have a little bit of like narrative progression to them as well. Like there's definitely something to be said there that's just beyond the clips or the frags.
Right. Um, Another thing I wanted to add is I went to an art gallery and I was trying to get our videos up in this gallery in Schaumburg over here in Illinois. And I realized like it doesn't fit at all. Like this stuff, like we got paintings by Dali, and then we're gonna have Halo montage videos with sound and stuff. I'm looking elsewhere. I'm looking at a gaming museum now to put our stuff in. But
Right.
um, oh man, I lost my train of thought, man. Oh, there was a famous artist that came in, and I was wondering, I'm like, I wonder how much, like, because this guy is like pretty well known, like he flew in from Europe, and I'm like, I wonder how long he spends on his work, because I wanted to see like compare, 'Cause I know how long, like you just said you spend 3 to 8 months on your stuff. I'm like, how long you spend on your stuff typically? And he's like, a good piece, like a week, 3 days to a week. And I'm like, oh wow, and that made me realize I'm like, we have something here. We really do have something special here because there's not. I mean, dude, like the passion involved in taking a project on for 3 to 8 months. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely something else. It's a trip for sure.
And I
One
know
of those
there's
I think, as you mentioned that gaming museum, like I totally think that given the right I guess like surroundings and like initial audience, there's absolutely that potential there.
absolutely. Um, Let me see here. Are there any up and coming montage creators you're particularly excited about? Any particular projects you're looking forward to?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I wouldn't even consider him up and coming at this point, but like any reflections edits that he's in the process of making, like I'm always super excited to see those. Um, in terms of up and comers, one dude who I think has a lot of really exciting stuff going on right now is Kale or like Kyle.
Oh, Gale?
Kale, K-I, yeah,
Oh, Kyle. Yeah.
Kyle.
Oh yeah, I seen his videos. He's posting in the FMA channel. He's coming a long way. Yeah, he's doing pretty good.
100%. His first edit was like so good. He's truly, I think, gonna be doing some great things in the scene.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how he develops for sure.
Totally.
Um, we're moving on to the next section, innovation and tools. How do you see technology shaping the future of frag movies, particularly AI? I'm interested what your take is on this.
Yeah, so I think in terms of AI, right, when people look at, I know especially in the Halo community, there's a lot of pushback when like an organization posts even like a poster for an event that has AI art.
Oh yeah, I know how that is.
A lot of pushback against those things, which I think is definitely, it's interesting, right? Like I hate to see AI fully overtaking the artistic process involved in really any of that stuff.
Absolutely.
And I could see it shaping the scenes somewhat negatively in that way. If people are using it as a way to, legitimately replace the creative process per se, I can see that being somewhat of a negative impact on the community. But I also think at the same time, like AI assisted tools and machine learning assisted tools, like even like the rotoscoping and tracking that we have in Adobe right now, um, the ability for AI to code custom plugins for a game, for example, that helps to assist the creator in like reaching their creative vision as opposed to replacing that. I think there's a lot of really exciting potential there. Because yeah, like there's a ton of tools in Adobe right now and After Effects even that use AI and machine learning and things like that. And I would never say that just because it's helping me mask a little bit easier that it's negatively impacting the artistic process. It's really just using the tool as a stepping stone to achieve, a cleaner vision, a cleaner execution.
Do you think
Um,
do you think the the dang, I forget. I'm sorry, man. I lost my train of thought. The next question is, what tools or techniques have you recently experimented with to push your montages to the next level? Sorry about that.
oh no, no worries at all. Yeah, I mentioned it a little bit previously, but yeah, like those reshade depth maps, crazy. Also, I was previously just using depth maps. For those passes, I'm starting to use the normal maps a little bit more and doing interesting stuff with like the chroma key function in there where you can add green screens at really particular points in a clip, depending on the depth. And then really just beyond that, I've been experimenting with a bunch of different plugins within the software that I currently use that do some pretty insane things. One of them that's really interesting is Depth Scanner, which does a similar thing to a depth pass and ReShade, but you can sort of like dynamically change which parts of it are depth mapped and whatnot. You can take like crazy slices of maps and like scenes at certain depths to make like chirpy visuals. And then another one I don't know if you've seen is like the Data Mosh plugin.
Oh
Data
yeah,
Data moshing is so hard in reality, like doing it manually.
I've been messing around with that. That's really cool.
Mhm. So neat. Like you can get some really crazy results if you play around with it a little bit. And it's like taking this also, I think, genuine art form, like data moshing and like, going in and manually disrupting your like rendering processes in your GPU to create this trippy effect and now just available on a plugin. I think that's really cool. I think an old school data mosher would say that that's as bad as using AI to like generate a whole image because it's taken a little bit of the manual artistry out of it. But I think if it puts those sorts of visuals in people's hands that normally wouldn't be able to create them, it's something that I'm excited about and definitely something that I've been experimenting with recently.
I didn't know. I didn't know there was a plugin for that. I did it through the content aware fill because I was messing around with that trying to get a certain look. Because I'm like, how did Zens do that? Like, you seen Ride a Halo 2 Montage 2, where
Yes.
he's got like the data mosh effect all over there. And I'm like, how did he do that? So I like looked up a tutorial and I I practiced a little bit doing it. But I did it through the content aware fill. I didn't know there was actual plugins for that. Are they paid or?
Yes, let me actually just double check what it even costs right now. I got it off AE Scripts. Data Mosh 2 is currently, oh, it's $60 now. I remember getting it like plenty back in the day. But yeah, there is a dedicated plugin. It's by Plug and Play.
Okay. So I just remembered my question that I was gonna ask you before. Do you ever think that AI it'll get to the point where we can type in like, oh, give me a double kill with a no scope from like, I don't know, on the pit from one side of the map to the other side of the map, after doing a 360 and like it'll recreate that entire thing? Think we'll ever get to that point?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I think
Fully 4 by cake. Look,
there's probably AI models that are already there.
yeah.
Just even in the sense that Halo has really rigid, it has really rigid, like form to it, The model doesn't have to do a whole lot. It has a lot of references. It can probably reference, the map files itself, given certain inputs. And yeah, I think we can definitely expect that at some point in the future. One thing that I think is significant, though, at the same time, is like the montage scene has always definitely thrived on authenticity in the sense at the same time. Like, I don't think anyone in the scene currently would ever fake a clip just to have like a really cool clip in their video. And I think AI would kind of be the same thing in that sense. It'd be kind of analogous to just going into a custom and like truly faking like a sick hardcore Killtrocity or something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you think there's a balance between staying true to Halo's roots and pushing the boundaries creatively? Where do you draw the line as far as editing goes and creativity goes? Now, this is kind of asking like, how do where do you draw the line as far as creativity goes and changing the game and making the montage the vision that you have?
Hmm. Right. No, that's a really good question, right? At a certain point, I think if it's gonna be, a Halo montage or whatever, it should probably look like Halo at a certain point. Like it should be recognizable to a certain extent. Um, Again, like I think there's space in the community within this like hyper engaged group of individuals for both, montages that err more on the side of classic Halo, looking like an older Halo project even, versus projects that are just like completely pushing the boundary, and they're almost just using the game as like a basis to get to this crazy visual art form.
Right.
I think there's definitely a balance to be struck there for sure. I think that a lot of editors right now are kind of towing the line there in that sense and trying to figure out what looks really cool and what doesn't take away from the clip without looking zany. But I've always thought at the same time that the people who complain about the editing taking away from the clip too much tend to just enjoy watching highlight videos for the most part anyway. Like they would almost prefer no editing.
Right. This reminds me of have you seen that edit by Keys? Ultimate Respawn, I believe it's called.
Oh yeah. Oh, I can't believe that I forgot Keys when it's like, who are your favorite editors right now? Yeah, Keys is an absolute legend.
He's a monster, man. That edit is fucking. I was just watching it like before we started doing this podcast, and like this question made me think of him and that montage that he made.
Oh, I feel like a fool now for having omitted him, but no, Keys like an Ultimate Respawn. I forget the name of it. The previous H2 video that he did before that was unbelievable. I know me and Slade were both watching those, and we were like, "Yo, this guy's him, like truly,
Yeah,
absolutely nutty." And I think it's just it depends on what type of video you're going into their making, and I think people are going to appreciate both either way. I think there's space for both of them in the community. Like a video like Keys, I wouldn't even say that takes away from the Halo 2 aspect of it too much, but it does really achieve this sort of like transcendental
right. Yeah,
next form.
right. Yeah, that kind of that creative blend, pretty much. That was very interesting at it for sure, pushing the boundaries, like you said, of the art form.
Absolutely.
The next question is, are there any features or improvements in editing software or Halo itself that would make your job or our job easier or more exciting?
Yeah, totally. Like, I think it's almost hard to say within the editing software because there's been so much crazy innovations in like even the past 10 years in terms of what these programs are capable of doing, right?
Yeah.
Tracking, rotoing, like smart masks and things like that are so nuts in terms of what you can do these days. The main thing that I would look at would be like within Halo itself. I think it's kind of crazy that we had to get someone from the Call of Duty space to build the Halo dolly cam for us, and that it's only within Halo 3, for example. I know other games, CS, certain CODs, I think like Black Ops 2 has a form of software that's just like a console where you can load a clip into it. Everything's fully editable. You can like change the skybox. You can change the death animations if
Oh,
people
wow.
know it. And it's almost like a separate game engine that's like running alongside it, emulating it. I'm not sure exactly how they work, but the things that you can do in those consoles are absolutely nutty. So either having a separate piece of software that goes alongside the game to sort of facilitate some of that, creative work that it's still the editor's decision, but is maybe less tedious to do as a result.
Right.
Or just even within Halo itself, like like Infinite's theater mode is so disappointing.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's so utterly like I don't know how or why it's so bad. Like, was there just so little thought that went into it? Was it potentially like a huge technical challenge for them? But like, yeah, theater mode with like multiple cameras, for example, cameras that you can attach to stuff. Because there's been scenes. I won't get too into it, but there's been scenes recently in the project that I'm working on now where you start to play around with like, oh, what if we could like fix the camera to this moving thing, right? Like, how cool would that be? And unfortunately, at the moment, you have to go into Blender and do that.
Right.
So seeing that actually baked into the game engine itself, I think would be like monumental. It would be crazy. And beyond that, even just having a theater that works.
Keyframable scenes too, like, I think would be cool.
Absolutely. Keyframeable camera without having to use a dolly cam, like an FOV slider for the camera
Oh,
where you
yeah.
can change like the millimeters, the depth of field within it, all of that stuff would be crazy. I don't see them ever doing it, but like a man can definitely dream. And then beyond that, my one favorite thing about the theater in Halo 3 is when you're looking at an angle and you hit the Y button, it does this smooth little swoop back to the first person.
Yes,
I
yes.
use that in my edits all the time, and I'm so ashamed that they got rid of it, and it just immediately, like,
It's
snaps
not there
back in.
anymore?
It's not there anymore.
What? Dude,
Yeah.
I did not know that, man.
Yeah, they got rid of it. They canned it at some point. But yeah, I would say bring that back.
Oh, that I didn't know they got rid of that, man. That kinda disappoints me a little bit, man.
Really? Yeah, 100%. It's one of the reasons I stay editing Halo 3.
Other things in the what's called, in the software I think would be cool would be, like, if the roto brush worked as intended, you know? You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Like, if it worked, like, if it was actually, like, pretty good, like, you click on something and it works like they show it in the commercials, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. I will say, like, Roto Brush 3 versus Roto, like the original Roto, um, is pretty substantial improvement, but 100%, like, they can absolutely get to a level where it's, like, flawless frame by frame, and you have to go in and maybe make a couple of adjustments, but, like, doing an entire shot in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, that would be huge as well.
Next question is, how do you stay motivated and avoid burning yourself out?
Really, it's just kind of like continuing to engage with the community, whether it's the people in the community or the work that is being pushed out in the community, seeing what people are up to, what they're experimenting with, and, just reaching out to like new people. I like to hop into Twitch chats from time to time just to like see what people are saying, whether they're just playing the game or maybe even just playing campaign and stuff like that. Like, I think the Halo community is a great place. It's a really big space ultimately at the end of the day, and I know montaging is just a small part of that at the moment. But yeah, it's all about just sort of reflecting on, being a part of this larger ecosystem, and there's fantastic people in here that make it worth it.
I really appreciate you doing this podcast, by the way, too, man.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
no problem, man. This is the last section, and then we'll just have our conversation here. Personal reflections and future goals. Which of your montages or which montage are you most proud of and why?
So I'm kind of struggling between I think Symbol of Fear was probably the most ambitious project and like the biggest undertaking that I've ever had in terms of a video. And similarly, I think that Thrill of Destruction, the follow-up to that, that's a little bit shorter, was like a cleaner, almost condensed version of that. Strictly in terms of the gameplay and trying to bring really clean visuals to it. Um, at the end of the day, I'll go with Symbol of Fear though. I think that almost had like the most impact out of any video that I've made. Put my name on the map a little bit, even just as this tiny little, marker up there. But yeah,
Yeah, that
safe to
montage.
for that.
That all the three modern ones that you've made, Despiteful, Thrill of Destruction, Symbol of Fear, are all. I mean, you'd be. They're all pretty much perfect in my opinion.
I appreciate that. And I will say for Symbol of Fear as well, like that was a really, I don't want to say intense. It was a really involved collaborative project as well. Like it was really cool working with someone else who doesn't necessarily edit, but they have a whole lot of cool ideas. Like they're bringing so much to the table and just trying to sort of like work back and forth and riffing on each other just to make the coolest thing that like both of us can possibly make combined.
Gotcha. Um, if you could go back and give yourself advice when you first started making frag movies, what would it be?
Um, Take your time. Take your time. Sit with a project. There's no rush. Once it's out, you can't really take it back. Um, Nobody wants to like, I guess like go back and make corrections to an old video. So yeah, take your time. It's all in the process, and once it's out, it's over. So enjoy it while it lasts.
That's great advice. Um, what would you say is the hardest part when editing a Halo montage? What's the hardest part, would you think?
Hardest part, honestly, I think is staying original without like completely falling off the wagon and, you know, making something that's like so different from your original vision just for the sake of being different, right? Like I try to make things that are relatively clean, do the clips a lot of justice, get people hype about the game. And it's hard to always stay original and like keep coming up with new ideas within
Yeah.
because yeah, as I said, like the community's so good these days. It's hard to find things that haven't been done, but that's also really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Um, how do you see the frag movie community evolving over the next 5 years, and what role do you hope to play in it?
I hope that honestly, like the next IP that we get, whether that's I think they said it's just going to be a whole new game for Halo, right? Like I know a lot of people were really excited for Infinite. And that hope was like almost immediately abandoned when the game came out, when it came to montaging or, editing aspirations for a lot of people. I'd really love to see more dev support in that sense, like 343 engage with the content side of things as well. Because I've seen people on their own team, lament that they don't see as many cool videos anymore. And my answer to them is just that like most people aren't really making them for Halo Infinite. People are sort of staying with something that actually feels genuine and kind of authentic. Not to say that Infinite edits can't be that. They've just made the task so tedious in this day and age.
Yeah.
And ultimately, yeah, I mean, in terms of the role that I hope to play in it, hope to keep making cool videos. Hope to keep, pushing the envelope within the community. I haven't really felt like I've contributed a ton to this scene, like as much as other people. So I'd love to continue just making those contributions, putting out work that people enjoy, and hopefully getting some really great players some exposure as well.
That's awesome. That's a great answer. This is the last question, and then I got like one little question, and then we can just chat. What's your ultimate goal as a montage artist, and what legacy do you hope to leave behind?
In terms of my ultimate goal, I don't think it really doesn't go further than just like make the video real good, you know? Um, I'm not too worried about any sort of legacy at the same time. Just because I understand that like the game changes so often. People come and go within this space. And realistically, I think a lot of people remember certain videos a lot more than they even remember certain creators, with the exception of like Zola or Campy, for example. And the opportunity to put out, pieces like that might make an impact, that might, stick around in the community's consciousness for a few years, is a really exciting prospect. But besides that, I'm not really too worried about leaving any sort of legacy.
Here I had one question that popped up into my mind. If you had to charge a realistic fee for a montage, like a good one, one that you spent those 3 to 8 months on, and you really put all your creative efforts into, what number would you put on that?
Yeah, so that's it. That's an interesting question. It's a question that me and Jairus have talked about before.
Reese, yes.
Uh, J Rees. When
John.
we were talking about making a melee edit. And the answer is more than people in the community would be willing to pay.
Well, it's not to get money out of the community. That's not why I'm asking. It's more of like, if I were to go and talk to like a art curator or like a collector, these guys got money, they got money. I want to know, like, realistically, like, I don't want to sell these for like, $1,000. And it's like, dude, Renzo, you could have, I don't want my video sold for $1,000, it's like, or $500 or $200, right? Like, if I could, that's what I'm asking. Cause I asked Slip in this, and he's like about 5,000. He said,
Yeah,
5,000.
that's probably about where I would put it at, right? So I kind of consider it as if I was commissioned for like a freelance project by a corporate client, right? Like a company where this is just going on their budget, right?
Right.
It would probably end up somewhere in that ballpark. That's the work by like 7K.
The bulk of the work, because that doesn't even take into account the creative part, which in my opinion is uh like priceless, like you can charge whatever you want for that. I mean, like,
Realistically, yeah. I mean, we'll wait for Elon to get into Halo and start making games.
so here's another thing, a neat thing. They asked Zola like how much it would take for him to come back and edit a video, and he said $35,000.
Right. I mean, that makes sense. Doesn't he works with a bunch of music artists now,
Oh
right?
yeah, he's with he does like videos for Coldplay and stuff, and some other musicians, famous
The edit
musicians.
for the chain smokers, yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean at that point, there isn't really a whole lot of financial incentive to come back, which is why for me, like it's never been about money
Of course.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because there's also other communities that you could go to that are like kind of similar to Halo, where you could charge way more. So at the end of the day, it's really just it's all about the love of the game. I don't even like to think about realistic figures because I don't want to, like, that would be so funny getting a DM on Twitter. Someone's like, "Hey, can you make me a montage?" Yeah, it'll be $7,500. Take PayPal, right? Maybe I should start doing that.
Yeah. What's it called? Yeah, the montage is like, I just think like if we could sell one, even just one, like sell it for like $10,000, that would make the news, Like fucking gaming videos just sold for $10,000, $100,000 or whatever.
Oh, 100%. It would be pretty monumental. I don't know who's currently in the market for that, but it'd be interesting to see.
There's so many art collectors come in all all kinds of shapes and sizes and have all kinds of interests and stuff. If they see that if they see like symbol of fear, like, oh, a lot of people like this video. Hey, hold on, there's something about this. Like, wait, I can own the like authentic copy, the legitimate copy signed by the creator or whatever. Like, okay, I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that time will tell in that sense as we sort of see how the community, how the work that's being put out evolves. And then I guess, as you were saying, like this, this move towards acceptance as a traditional, mainstream art form.
Yeah, and we have such a rich community. Like they were telling me like one of the artists from the gallery was like, you guys should like organize these things, and I'm like, we already do that. It's like, well, you should do this, and I'm like, we actually did that like 5 times already. Like, like we have contests, we have like, editing groups. I mean, it's so cool, like what we have. It really is a fucking awesome community, man. And I'm so proud and grateful to be a part of it and to have, to share it with people like yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hey, same here.
Last question. This is, have you used Topaz Video AI, and what are your thoughts on using AI to restore/enhance old videos? Just a random question I had.
Yeah, so I've never used Topaz before. I am familiar. It's like an upscaling AI model.
Yeah, you can upscale the video to 4K and it'll improve the quality too, and you can up the frame rate.
Yeah, no real issue with that. Honestly, I don't think that it takes anything away from the original creative energy or effort that was put into the video. I don't think that you would be able to, let's say, to upscale like a really poorly made video into 4K, and that would somehow change the fact that it was poorly made initially, right?
Yeah.
I don't personally have any issue with it. I consider that almost one of the like AI assisted tools that editors can use as opposed to using AI to replace editing. Um, on some clips, on plenty of clips that I've used before, I've used the detail preserving upscale in After Effects
Yep.
when there simply wasn't a higher quality version of the clip. Like the project's in 1080. Somehow we have this 720p clip, and you got to do what you got to do to make it work.
Right. The reason I asked that is because Rukio had mentioned that, because I was doing like videos in 60 FPS and old videos in 60 FPS, and Rukio was like, dude, there's like a blur, like a visual like blur between each like fast animations and stuff that looks like really wonky. And
Right.
I thought about that and I'm like, you know what? Like this kind of does take away from the video. So I've just been leaving it at 30 FPS, the same frame rate as the original frame rate, and just using the upscale because it really does look a lot sharper and better with the AI upscale.
Totally. And yeah, that's probably like if I were to use it, that's probably the side that I would err on as well. I always prefer my videos in 30 either way.
Yeah.
I think even given the choice to render it natively at 60 frames per second, I always knock it down to 30. Just a weird personal thing where I think that Halo Montage is in 30. Maybe it's something about them looking a little bit more classic when it ran on the original 360 at 30 frames per second, or maybe it's just my own personal taste for that. But I've seen it as well on those TVs that use frame interpolation to make everything 60 frames per second, even if you're watching a movie that was recorded in 24p. And
Yeah.
it's always just made it look a little bit like uncanny to me, in a sense.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I'm re-uploading a lot of my videos in just the 30 FPS instead of the 60 FPS like I was doing. And I feel kind of bad about doing the old ones because I'm like I kind of ruined them, you know? I'm like, fuck, man. Like
I
60
would
FPS looks like shit.
Yeah, I wouldn't think of it that way. I think it's a good learning experience, and like a higher frame rate can work well for a lot of things, but I think AI, especially given some of the weirder animations in Halo, especially when there's really fast-paced pans and things like that, it doesn't really know what to do with them. If my
Right.
model is trained on like real world examples of that same thing, it can look a little bit too organic. or like uncanny within the Halo engine.
That's so true. Yeah.
But yeah, no issues with Topaz at all. It's a shame I haven't had a chance to use it yet.
If you need it, I can probably get it for you. But
Okay.
yeah, what's it called? Yeah, it's a fantastic piece of like software, I think. And especially like you've been making videos for a while, like you've got your old videos, just restore them, enhance them basically, and put them up again for people to enjoy because, a lot of people do it like that nostalgic factor of, those old videos.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean that's definitely something that I can be looking into in the future for sure.
Trying to think of any other discussion topics that do you want to shout anybody out?
In terms of shout outs, sure, yeah. I mean, shout outs to you for having me on. Really appreciate it. Shout out to all of the Halo 3 rats. You got Slade out here, the real OD, QJ Matt, all of those boys. Who else? Who am I missing? Kathan. Kathan's the GOAT. Keys Open Door, Unreal Editor. Shout out to my boy Jonah Martinez, aka Savage in the Melee sphere. He's also a god. Confusing, who did a lot of the thumbnail work on like Symbol of Fear and Thrill of Destruction. Those are both Confusing's thumbnails. He's an Unreal graphic designer.
Those thumbnails are dope.
Yeah, he's really something special, and he does really dope car wraps as well.
Nice.
It's kind of his main gig. But other than that, yeah, thank you to everyone who's taken the time to watch the videos, leave a comment, and yeah, just for being in this amazing community.
Absolutely. With that, I think we can, well, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about Melee or whatever. Giant has, yeah,
Melee's a trip, dude. Yeah, that's the whole crazy game.
it's always been interesting that Halo and Melee kind of came up together,
Absolutely, yeah. Back in the old MLG days, I know they used to run events like side by side at those MLG tournaments. I know in the Smash Talk they mentioned like everyone in the venue was getting hyped. Like even the Halo kids were watching Melee Grand Finals.
Oh yeah, those were wild.
It's been interesting how the communities have been kind of similar, kind of tied together for a little bit. And I know someone like Squatting Bear has definitely made like the connections between these as well. Like the Melee crowd and the Halo 2 crowd are very tied together. They're both super technical games that, came out in a way that the developer maybe didn't intend, with all these crazy like button combos and exploits and things like that.
Right.
The community just took it and ran with it and turned it into this like beautiful competitive thing. Yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels that you could make.
That's so cool. I did mention, I always thought like Halo 2 was kind of like these Melee of shooters, because it has the glitches and stuff like that. It has that skill gap.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, right? If you don't know how to BXR, double shot, or quad shot, like you're just gonna have to learn to be viable. Yeah, to be a viable competitor. So no, I always think that that's super interesting. Shout out to all the Melee boys as well, all the homies in the hyperbolic smoke chamber.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to those guys too. Yeah. I need to play a little bit more. I haven't been playing a lot of what's it called? I'm actually working on a video for my first montage. I've always edited montages for other people. I think I had maybe a handful, like 2 videos with my actual gameplay in it.
Oh, really?
You like?
Can I one of those now?
Yeah. I might actually. You know what? I'll send you a render of the test render of it. I think you'll really like it.
Nice. Yeah, I'd love to take a look at that.
All right, we'll end it now. Thank you so much for coming on, bro. Like it's always a pleasure talking to you and spending time with you and picking your brain on things. You're an amazing artist, man, and I'm looking forward to that new project that you're working on.
Yeah, right on. Thanks so much. I appreciate you as well, dude. And yeah, looking forward to chatting more in the future. That was a good discussion.
All right, sounds good. Later.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go grab some dinner. Take it easy.